let's be honest. Performance reviews are, well, they're not always great, are they? But what if you got one that cut through all the noise? No corporate jargon, just a crystal clear, brutally honest assessment of exactly where you stand. Today, we're digging into a fascinating series of ancient, high-stakes reports, and you might be surprised by how relevant they still are.
Just imagine for a second. You get a message, and it starts with the words, "I know your deeds." That's intense, right? It's a powerful and, yeah, maybe a slightly intimidating thought. Well, that's exactly what happened to several communities way back in the 1st century.
So, what we're diving into are 3 actual letters sent to churches in what we now call modern-day Turkey. In the book of Revelation, these are presented as direct messages from Jesus dictated to the Apostle John. And these weren't just, some abstract philosophical writings. Nope, these were direct, personal, and super urgent messages, and they all followed a very specific pattern.
And here's what's so cool about them. Each letter follows this clear 3-part formula. First, a direct diagnosis. Then, a clear command, a call to action. And finally, a powerful promise. Diagnosis, command, promise. Keep that formula in your head as we dive into our first case study, Sardis. All right, first up, we've got the church in Sardis. And these guys, oh boy, they had a major branding problem. Not with the public, but with themselves. This was a classic case of reputation versus reality. On the outside, from a distance, everyone thought Sardis was killing it. They had the reputation of being alive. But the divine diagnosis, the actual reality, you are dead. Whoa. I mean, you can't get much more direct than that. It's not just a bad review, it's an F-, a total failure.
In this line right here, it just nails the core problem. Their work was incomplete. They started strong, but they got lazy, complacent. It was all appearances, no substance. So, okay, if a church is basically on life support, what's the command? What's the action plan?
The action plan was basically an emergency protocol, 4 steps. First, wake up. And this was a really pointed command for Sardis. See, the city had been conquered twice before because the guards literally fell asleep on watch. So this was a huge wake-up call, in more ways than one. Second, strengthen what remains, salvage what's left. Third, hold fast to what you were taught. And finally, repent, turn things around. And believe me, the stakes could not have been higher. The warning uses that famous phrase that judgment will arrive suddenly and unexpectedly, like a thief in the night. There'd be no time to prepare. But here's the thing. Even in this just brutal report card, there's still a promise. There's hope for the few who were hanging on. They're promised white robes. That's all about purity and honor. And for a church told it was dead, the ultimate reward is just perfect. Their names will be secured forever in the book of life, an incredible image of permanence and divine recognition. Okay, so from the Walking Dead of Sardis, let's jump to a totally different story. This is the church in Philadelphia, and their whole deal is about finding incredible strength where you'd least expect it. I love this contrast. The message starts by being totally upfront. You have little strength. They're not a powerhouse. They're not a big deal. But because they were faithful, the reward is massive. An open door that no one can shut. An opportunity that nothing and no one can take away from them.
So, yeah, this performance review, it's a glowing one. Unlike Sardis, which was all about looking good on the outside, Philadelphia gets praise for just sticking with it, for their endurance and their loyalty, even when they didn't have a lot going for them. Small but faithful. That was their superpower.
And you can see this direct link here. It's a because you did this, I will do that kind of deal. Because they endured patiently, they are promised protection from a coming hour of trial. Their faithfulness literally becomes their shield. And the promise for them is just, it's beautiful. The faithful become pillars in God's temple. Now, pillar isn't just for looks, right? It's essential. It holds the whole thing up. It means you're permanent, you're stable, you have an important, honored place. I mean, talk about a promotion. From having little strength to being a pillar of the whole structure. Wow.
All right, that brings us to our final and maybe the most famous case study of all, the church in Laodicea. So if Sardis was dead and Philadelphia was alive and kicking, Laodicea was in a category all its own. And you could argue it was the worst place to be.
You have to see the disconnect here. It's just staggering. Laodicea was a banking hub, super wealthy. So wealthy, in fact, that after a massive earthquake, they told the Roman Empire, nah, we're good, we got this, and rebuilt the whole city themselves. So that attitude of, I'm rich, I don't need a thing, that was their identity. But the divine report card,
It shreds that to pieces. It says, actually, you're wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. They were completely and dangerously self-deceived.
And this might be one of the most intense lines in the whole book. The problem wasn't that they were evil or rebellious. It was worse. It was indifference. They were lukewarm. And that spiritual apathy was so disgusting, so repulsive, that the response is just as visceral. I am about to spit you out of my mouth. It's a total rejection of just being okay, of being in the middle.
So the command for them is framed as a shopping list, using metaphors they totally get. It's like, forget your cash. You need to buy what really matters. First, buy gold refined in fire. That's real faith. Second, buy white clothes to cover up your spiritual shame. And then, and this is the real zinger, buy eye salve so you can see. Why is that such a big deal? Well, Laodicea was world famous for making a special eye ointment. The message is incredibly pointed. The very medicine you sell to the world for physical blindness, you desperately need for your own spiritual blindness. Ouch.
And yet, after all of that, after that incredibly harsh takedown, the letter ends with this unbelievably gentle and famous invitation. The tone just completely shifts from judgment to grace. The door's not been slammed shut. It's an open offer of reconciliation there for anyone who's willing to just listen and open the door.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've seen 3 very, very different report cards. What's the pattern? What's the big takeaway here?
This chart just lays it all out so clearly, doesn't it? You can see the whole story at a glance. You've got Sardis diagnosed as dead, their command is to wake up, and the promise is the book of life. Then Philadelphia, faithful, so they're told to hold on, and they get to be a pillar. And finally Laodicea, lukewarm, commanded to be earnest, with the promise of a throne. It's that same diagnosis command promise formula every single time. It's the blueprint.
So what does this all mean? The big takeaway is that this ancient framework, it's really a timeless model for how to look at things honestly. It's all about having a clear-eyed, no-excuses diagnosis of where you really are, a direct, actionable plan to move forward, and a powerful, motivating vision of what's possible if you do the work.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If we took this unflinching 3-part model and applied it to ourselves, to our own lives, our work, our communities, what would that divine report card reveal about us? What would be our diagnosis, our command, and our promise? That's definitely something to chew on.